Put up all the holiday decorations, have you? Have you given thought to fire safety in the midst of that? Well, joining us today to help us with those reminders, once again, from the Fire Prevention Education Group, E.S.C.A.P.E, Michael McLeieer. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
How you doing?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, just fine. You've been busy in education mode the last few days.
I have. I just returned from the greater Washington, D.C. area. We had a summit or a symposium in Annapolis, Maryland, and fire service experts from across the country. There were about 50 of us that actually got together and started really looking at our home fire death problem. As we've talked on air, Michigan is unfortunately leading the country in high numbers in home fire deaths. We're in the mid-90s right now for the year.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
so we could actually peak 100 over the next couple of weeks. I hope that doesn't happen, but the numbers are so alarming that we're actually killing more citizens here in Michigan than we do firefighters across the country that actually fight the fires.
What accounts for that?
Well, what we're finding, Richard, and this was true not only here in Michigan but across the country, the majority of the fire fatalities are occurring in homes that don't have working smoke alarms. So as we transition into the holiday season, as we transition into family, food, festivity, and fun, we need to be thinking safety. And this is a perfect opportunity to give the gift of safety. If you know of someone that doesn't have a smoke alarm or their smoke alarms are over 10 years old, let's give the gift of safety. Let's give new smoke alarms as holiday gifts or holiday presents. Families many times don't realize that smoke alarms have a life expectancy just like anything else in our home. So we need to make sure we stay safe. As we get that live tree or we get those decorations out, we need to make sure that that live tree is properly watered. We also need to make sure that they stay at least 3 feet away from a heat source. That's the number one leading cause of the tree drying out, is it's too close to a heat register or another heat source. And we need to make sure that anytime we put those lights or decorations on the trees, that we inspect the wiring, because leading cause of Christmas tree fires actually is from the holiday lights or the wiring shorting out. It's never a good idea to leave the house or leave and go to bed with the tree left on. I know sometimes it's pretty, it's very tempting, but that can really put everyone at risk.
All right, we're going to talk more about that, too, in a minute. I'm curious about this 10-year thing. So I presume some smoke alarms last longer than that, but the notion is probably not much longer, so 10 is a nice number to just replace them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just like anything else in our home, there's a life expectancy, and the technology has actually proven that about 10 years is that life expectancy for both smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Plus, let's stop and think of technology, Richard. New technology brings more sensitive type of smoke alarms. New technology brings the devices, which actually there's one product on the market that will alert your smartphone if that smoke alarm activates. So new technology brings advantages that we can be alerted even when we're not home that something could be happening. It could activate a camera so that we could actually, notice there's one manufacturer that has that technology that we could know what's going on in our home even if we're away at the supermarket or on vacation.
Now, some folks will listen to that and say, when I make toast, that thing's going to go off. How do you temper that argument?
Well, that's a good point. And most all of the smoke alarms on the market today, Richard, have hush buttons. So it prevents us from taking that battery out of the smoke alarm. That's one of the leading causes. 90% of homes, when we've conducted the studies, actually have smoke alarms. Only 50% on average are operational. That means they have power going to them either through an AC source, an electric source, or a battery-operated source. And if the smoke alarm's installed and it doesn't have constant power to it, that's a problem. It's not going to alert people. And folks don't realize that our home furnishings are much more flammable today than what they've ever been. So it's essential that we get out quickly. We're alerted by those smoke alarms early and often. When they do go off, we need to have a plan. And most of the time we find these fatal fires occur at night when we're sleeping.
Yeah, not paying attention. I like
That's
that hush button thing. that you said.
Exactly.
Don't you wish some people had that?
I know. Well, I was at an event here a month or so ago, and we had some patrons that actually came to this event, and they were under the misassumption and misperception that they should actually install smoke alarms in the kitchen, because we talk on air a lot. Majority of our home fires occur from unattended cooking in the kitchen, but that's where we can get those nuisance alarms if the alarm's placed too closely to the kitchen. And photoelectric technology, it's a type of alarm that actually prevents those nuisance alarms. That alarm should be placed about 10 feet away from the kitchen, so it'll still alert us, but it's not going to cause that nuisance alarm from cooking, or even sometimes people place that alarm right outside the shower. The steam from the shower can set the alarm off.
Yeah, I had one in one house that was like that too, and I had to move it because the steam would set it off. Just that little bit of warmth against it would take care of that. Mike McLeieer is with us from E.S.C.A.P.E. We'll talk more about holiday-related reminders about fire safety, and I want to pick up on that whole notion that our furnishings in our house are more flammable than ever. We'll talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. WBCK Thursday. Mike McLeieer is with us from E.S.C.A.P.E. We're talking about holiday fire safety. And you made a remark about our furnishings being more flammable than ever. I think the presumption is that we've gotten better about that. You're saying that home furnishings go up easier than they ever have.
They do. There's a lot more petroleum-based products that are actually in a lot of the home furnishings that we have. We talk about modern versus legacy furnishings. The legacy furnishings that our grandparents had could take upwards of 30 minutes to arrive at flashover. That's where everything in the home, everything in that room catches fire at the same time. Now we're talking less than 2 minutes. And, Richard, it takes the average fire department under ideal conditions at least 4 to 8 minutes to arrive on location, assuming they're not out on another emergency scene. So the misconception that the firefighters were going to come out and save the day is not necessarily true. This is why it's important families have an escape plan, and they have working smoke alarms, and they practice that plan at least twice a year.
Well, and you got to know about the fire first before you tell the fire department to come.
That's right.
So a lot of this could be going on for a while.
Absolutely. And those slow smoldering fires, if they're occurring, if they fill the home up with smoke while we're sleeping, we're going to go into a deeper level of sleep. Some people assume that, well, we'll wake up, our senses, our nose will wake us up, but that's not necessarily the case. The carbon monoxide and other gases will actually put people into a deeper level of sleep.
Wow. Now, you talked about the holiday lights and lights shorting out and things of that nature. I mean, I think some of us may have been thinking that we've done better in this department. That is to say, the lights of today are safer than those of days gone by. Is that true?
It is. But we still need to make sure that we're using lights from a nationally tested laboratory like Underwriters Laboratory, FM Global, one of those nationally approved testing labs. We need to make sure that there's no frays in the wiring, because sometimes if we put those smaller, thinner wires away and those thinner lights away, they can over time crack. So we need to make sure we inspect those. Yes, today's lighting is much safer than those large bulbs you and I grew up with that we screwed in and we put on the Christmas tree with grown-ups' assistance and so forth. Less electric draw, but what that tends to lead to is people then using extension cords or power strips where we overload the rating capacity and potentially could cause an electrical fire. So we just have to use good common sense and think safety, follow those manufacturers' recommendations that's clearly labeled on the package.
And, these days when you buy pre-lit trees, you're not really inspecting the wires. You just put the tree together and turn it on.
That's right. So we just need to make sure as we do assemble those trees, if they're already pre-made and pre-lit, make sure that we're not pinching any wires where it could cause an electrical short.
Talking with Michael McLeieer from E.S.C.A.P.E. When we come back in a minute, a couple of other tips about holiday stuff, including the real trees and being safe with those and so on. Space heaters, we haven't even talked about that yet. We'll get to that coming up shortly on WBCK. WBCK Thursday, Michael McLeieer is on the line with us from E.S.C.A.P.E. We've been talking about trying to be mindful about safety. So you talked about drying out those real trees, which, of course, makes them like tinder, I guess. It'd be easy to light them right up. What does that? Just general being close to a heat vent or maybe a space heater will do it?
That will be a cause to dry the tree out, and time, Richard. The longer that tree has been cut, the greater the chance when that tree is cut, it actually is a wound to the trunk. So the wound is going to heal just like it does on us as a person. So even though that tree is actually sitting in water, it may not be over time absorbing up adequate amounts of water. A great way to check and see if your tree is too dry if the needles start pulling out or they actually fall out. That's the time that we dispose of that tree. Many times people want to keep that tree well into January, and if it's a live tree, that's not a safe choice. Many of these trees were cut back in October, and again, even though it's sitting in water, it still may not be taking up adequate amounts of water. Making sure the holiday decorations don't block exits in case a fire were to occur, and keeping space heaters at least 3 feet away from anything that could catch fire as well. Always good choices.
One of the things that we tend to do, maybe more this time of year than not, is candles.
Yes, and some people, unfortunately, Richard, are still using real candles on Christmas trees, especially live trees. Never a safe choice. A better choice for using candles anywhere in the home would be those battery-operated candles. Much safer, flameless, and easier to enjoy the aroma and the ambiance of that candle.
I love those. All year long, I love those. They're just great.
You bet.
And
lastly, if people are actually using fireplaces this time of year, which many will, or the pellet stoves, properly disposing those ashes outside in a metal container with a lid, never in the plastic container that we place our regular trash, because sometimes those ashes can flare back up. They can cause a fire, and many times those trash cans or containers are placed in our garage or next to our home, can cause a fire.
Mm-hmm. Right, and maybe the perception is, that's thick plastic, you're not going to burn that. Yes, right. You will.
Yes, you will. Absolutely.
We should be checking the water in the Christmas tree, even though you're saying eventually it just doesn't take water that well anymore, but we should be checking that daily, right?
We should check that daily, make sure, again, pets and young children stay away from the tree. The tree falling over, especially if it's a large tree, a tall tree, could be a hazard. So making sure the tree is properly secure, and never again leaving those lights on when we leave the home or we go to bed. Let's make sure we have a safe holiday season all throughout this season and all throughout the year, and make sure we have a fire-safe year.
There's been, and I suppose you could find this if you Google well enough, but video of trees going up. I imagine they go up very fast.
They do. And we're actually going to post a link on our website, E.S.C.A.P.E.inc.org, E.S.C.A.P.E.inc.org, so people can see a watered fresh tree versus a dried-out tree and how quickly that dried-out tree can actually catch fire and catch an entire room on fire. And it could, the smoke and the superheated gases then can prevent people from quickly escaping the home. Never fight that fire. Get everyone out of the home, call the fire department, let the firefighters do their job, and that's going to be a safer choice.
Something we always try to say when Mike's here is that there are opportunities to get smoke alarms at no cost, right?
Yes. We actually are getting ready to launch our 2016 campaign during the first quarter of 2016. We're getting low on alarms. We still have a few left, but anybody that needs alarms, they can give me a call at 1-800-707-1718, and we will partner you up with your local fire department, or the American Red Cross is one of our partners, doing a great job at getting smoke alarms installed. But again, if you have the ability and you know of a neighbor, you know of a family member that doesn't have a smoke alarm, give the gift of safety. Go out, purchase one of those new smoke alarms, make sure that we have smoke alarms inside, outside, each bedroom, in each sleeping area, and never in the kitchen, but on every level of the home, to make sure we have a safe year all throughout the year.
Should there be one in a garage?
Not in the garage, because most garages are not heated, and we're going to have issues in those unheated areas, attics, or garages where that false alarm, a nuisance alarm, is going to be more of a problem. Okay. So we don't want to have a smoke alarm in an unheated space or unheated area.
All right, let's hear that number one more time, if you would.
Sure, 1-800-707-1718. If they have any fire safety questions or need smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, we can try and partner them up with one of our partnering organizations or local fire department.
Yeah, and if you missed that, Michael did say free.
That's
so
right.
If that's an issue, you make these connections, and you won't have to worry about the money. All right, and we will post this interview and this information at WBCKFM.com, and you can click through and see E.S.C.A.P.E's website and the information that you've put there as well. As always, Michael, we thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Have a great holiday season. Thanks for having me on again.
You too. Michael McLeieer with E.S.C.A.P.E, WBCK.